The Earth has held this secret for 10,000 years. The dust we stand on conceals truths that rewrite history itself. Forget everything you learned about the Stone Age. They were digging for metal. An impossible date, a radical technology, a lost civilization emerging from the dark. This single discovery shatters the established timeline of human progress and invention. The Copper Age did not begin when we thought it did. It began in the shadows of the Mesolithic. Watch until the end to see the artifacts themselves, the undeniable proof of what they found. If you believe human history is richer and stranger than we are told, hit the subscribe button and comment below with the word copper right now to join this search for forgotten knowledge. The arid plateau of Anatolia, a land baked hard by 10,000 summers, holds the key to the ultimate archaeological paradox, a discovery so profound that it forces a total re-evaluation of humanity's march from stone to metal. This is not about the first glint of gold or a polished stone axe. This is about an industrial operation, a relentless pursuit of mineral wealth that began when the very concept of farming was still nascent in the human mind. We are talking about a copper mine, not a casual surface find, but a deliberate, organized effort to extract ore, dated to a time that should have been defined purely by hunter-gatherers and flaked flint tools, a staggering 10,000 years ago. The established chronology of the ancient world tells a clear story. The Stone Age gave way to the Neolithic revolution of farming, which was then followed by the Chalcolithic period, or Copper Age, around 5000 BCE, when smelting, the art of extracting metal from rock using fire, was finally mastered. But the evidence uncovered from sites spanning the Middle East, like the ancient Shanidar Cave and the groundbreaking Old Copper Complex in North America, throws this neat progression into chaos, suggesting an early, almost forgotten proficiency with metal that predates organized agriculture by millennia. How could people who had not yet mastered the wheel or simple ceramics already be operating as sophisticated mineral prospectors? This shocking anomaly is built upon hard, physical proof, not speculation or myth, specifically the presence of cold-hammered native copper artifacts dating to as far back as 8,700 BCE. Imagine a small bead found deep within a cave in modern-day Iraq, a tiny, almost insignificant object that should not exist, pushing the use of metal back to a time when mammoths were a recent memory, and the great ice sheets had barely retreated. These are not relics of a civilization, but fragments of an early culture that somehow understood the unique properties of a material that lay dormant in the earth, and they were actively seeking it out. The earliest signs of this incredible pursuit are not elaborate shafts, but subtle, determined scrapings and surface extraction zones, indicating that these people quickly learned to identify and quarry the vivid green and blue copper ores like malachite and azurite. In the Timna Valley, for instance, a place later famed for its wealth of ore, signs of surface deposit usage date back well into the 7th and 6th millennia BCE. Though dedicated, deep mining shafts are usually associated with later periods. The key is the shift from finding a piece of surface metal to extracting it systematically. An intellectual leap that demands geological understanding and logistical planning far beyond the scope we usually afford to Mesolithic communities. The term native copper is crucial to understanding this first phase of impossible discovery. This is copper found in a pure, metallic state, not trapped within a chemical compound that requires intense heat to separate. Picture a chunk of rock with veins of soft, malleable red gold running through it, a gift from the earth that looks and feels distinct from the surrounding stone. This native metal could be shaped simply by striking it repeatedly with another, harder stone. A process known as cold hammering, which is a technique found in some of the oldest copper artifacts in the world, including those from Sayonu Tepesi in eastern Anatolia, dating to roughly 7200 BCE. This simple yet profound method allowed Stone Age humans to bypass the technological chasm of high-temperature metallurgy for thousands of years, granting them access to a material that was harder, more resilient, and infinitely more flexible than any stone or bone tool they possessed. They were not smelting yet, but they were processing, transforming raw geological deposits into functional objects, awls, hooks, pins, and ornamental beads that significantly improved their quality of life. acting as the ultimate status symbols or specialized tools that conferred a massive advantage to the possessor. This period of early metal manipulation proves that innovation is not always tied to a single, grand discovery like the mastery of fire, but to countless small, logical steps taken by astute observers. The scale of the operation, particularly in North America, provides the most compelling case for an organized industry dating back almost 10,000 years, centered around the massive native copper deposits of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, known as the Old Copper Complex. Archaeological dating places the earliest mining and manufacturing activities here at around 9500 BP, which is roughly 7480 BCE, a date that challenges the Eurocentric view of technological development, showing that distant, unconnected cultures were making the same fundamental discovery at nearly the same time. This American complex featured thousands of shallow pits, some clearly organized and systematically worked, a true mining operation that lasted for thousands of years before mysteriously fading. These miners, from the Middle East to the Great Lakes, faced and solved formidable logistical challenges, moving massive boulders to access the copper veins, fashioning stone hammers and chisels to chip away at the ore, and transporting the finished products across vast, unforgiving landscapes. The evidence suggests a sophisticated, albeit stone-based, mining culture, where labor was specialized and knowledge was passed down through generations, indicating a level of societal organization previously thought impossible for pre-pottery, early Neolithic groups. The mental template required to initiate and sustain a resource extraction project of this magnitude simply does not align with the standard model of scattered, small-scale farming communities. The economic and social implications of this early copper trade are what truly redefine this lost period of history, suggesting a network of exchange that linked communities separated by immense distances, long before the well-documented Silk Roads or Mesopotamian trade routes. Consider the weight and rarity of the finished copper goods, the sheer effort involved in hammering a rough nugget into a delicate fish hook or a durable spear point. These were not casual possessions, but objects of immense value, traded for essential resources like high-quality chert for stone tools or rare foodstuffs. This early resource specialization acted as an unexpected catalyst for social complexity. The very act of mining and processing this metal likely birthed a new class of specialists, individuals whose skill in locating, extracting, and shaping copper gave them elevated status within their group and power in intercommunity negotiations. We can visualize the tension in an early settlement, the regular farmers providing sustenance, the miners risking their lives in shallow pits for the iridescent ore, and the smiths, the proto-metallurgists, who could transform the cold rock into a shining, useful tool. This division of labor suggests an emerging social stratification far earlier than previously accounted for, driven not by agriculture, but by the pursuit of technology. This emerging metal culture, however, was fundamentally limited by one critical constraint: the finite availability of native copper that was easily accessible on the surface or in shallow veins. The widespread, sustained use of metal that we associate with the true Copper Age and the Bronze Age only became possible once humans conquered the secret of smelting, the high-temperature chemical process of separating metal from its ore. This new technology, securely dated to around 5000 BCE in sites like Plochnik in Serbia, required the construction of sophisticated furnaces, the careful control of airflow, and a deep understanding of fire and chemistry. The massive gap of 3,000 to 4,000 years between the earliest cold-hammered copper pendant, 8700 BCE, and the oldest securely dated evidence of high-temperature smelting, 5000 BCE, presents the true unanswered question of this discovery. Why did this initial, brilliant spark of technological progress stall? Did a changing climate or a shifting nomadic pattern disrupt the knowledge base? Was the difficulty of locating the rarer, pure native copper simply too great a barrier to widespread adoption, forcing people to rely on stone again, until the later, harder-to-process ores were conquered through fire? The sheer audacity of the 10,000-year-old claim lies precisely in this chronological gap, forcing us to consider a world where humanity took one step onto the path of metallurgy, and then, for reasons unknown, retreated to the familiar certainty of stone tools. This is the missing technological link. The silent millennia, when the knowledge of working metal existed, but did not explode into the societal revolution we call the Bronze Age. We must imagine these early miners, their hands stained green with copper dust, chipping away with stone hammers in pits just a few meters deep, fully aware that they possessed a material superior to everything else around them, yet unable to replicate the process with the much more abundant, chemically bound ores. Consider the stark contrast between the simple, cold-worked objects from the Mesolithic and the technologically advanced cast implements of the later Chalcolithic. The former represents sheer geological luck and simple mechanical skill. The latter represents true scientific discovery and industrial process control. The transition from one to the other is not a smooth slope, but a colossal cliff face, indicating a radical break in the learning curve, a profound secret that had to be rediscovered. The discovery of these 10,000-year-old operations doesn't just push a date back. It suggests a cyclical view of human progress, where foundational knowledge can be gained, lost, and then painfully reattained thousands of years later. Furthermore, the geographical spread of these earliest finds, from the Fertile Crescent to North America, implies either an astonishingly rapid diffusion of the idea across continents, or, far more intriguingly, multiple independent inventions of metalworking. This raises the possibility that the properties of native copper were simply too striking, too obvious to be missed by clever observers in various parts of the globe, challenging the long-held notion of a single cradle of metallurgy, from which all metal technology eventually spread. The universality of this discovery suggests an inherent human capacity for observation that we consistently underestimate. The artifacts themselves, when viewed through a modern lens, become almost spiritual objects, tiny pieces of evidence that connect us directly to the minds of people living at the end of the last ice age. A simple copper awl from 7000 BCE is more than a tool. It is a tangible symbol of curiosity and material innovation, a declaration that for at least 10 millennia, the human race has been trying to escape the limitations of the purely organic world. They sought to harness the durable, conductive power of minerals, a quest that culminated thousands of years later in the electric cables and microchips that define our own time, all rooted in those initial, impossible excavations. The mystery surrounding the ultimate fate of these earliest copper cultures is as compelling as their initial discovery. The communities associated with the old copper complex in North America, for instance, eventually disappeared or transitioned back to a predominantly stone tool economy, leaving behind thousands of abandoned mining pits and a legacy of copper objects that were forgotten until modern archaeology rediscovered them. Was their resource exhausted? Did their cultural focus shift? Or were they simply outcompeted by groups that relied on more sustainable, non-metallic technologies until true smelting became widespread? This pattern of advanced technology appearing, flourishing briefly, and then vanishing or reverting is a powerful reminder that progress is not inevitable. It requires the right environmental, social, and resource conditions to be sustained. The initial 10,000-year-old discovery was merely the ignition, the spark of genius that revealed metal's potential. The millennia that followed were the hard, slow work of figuring out how to turn that spark into a bonfire, a transition that ultimately depended on mastering fire to extract copper from rock, a different, more complex type of stone than the easy native metal. The breakthrough of pyrometallurgy, smelting, is the true revolution that ended the Stone Age, a process that required temperatures above 1085 Celsius, far hotter than a domestic campfire, necessitating forced air from bellows or carefully designed furnaces. The earliest securely dated slag, the glassy waste product of smelting, at sites in the Balkans like Rudna Glava, confirms this revolutionary step was achieved by 5000 BCE. But the path from the 8700 BCE copper pendant to this industrial process is frustratingly opaque. What kind of accidental discovery or deliberate experimentation finally bridged that chasm? Some theories suggest the accidental smelting of copper ore occurred when malachite, a bright green copper carbonate used as a pigment, was exposed to the high heat of a pottery kiln or a domestic hearth. The aesthetically pleasing blue and green stones were already valued, and the accidental transformation of a stone into a molten, glowing metal must have seemed like powerful magic to those early observers. This transition from cold, pure metal to hot, extracted metal marks the true end of the impossibility, ushering in the era of abundant, cast copper tools, and eventually, the alloy we call bronze. The implications for how we teach and understand human technological history are enormous. If copper was being systematically mined and utilized 10,000 years ago, then the traditional labels of Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic become deeply inadequate, failing to capture the complexity of a world that was already experimenting with material science. The discovery suggests that early human intelligence was capable of high-level problem-solving and long-term planning far earlier than the agricultural revolution, meaning that technological prowess was not purely a byproduct of sedentary life and population density. The very concept of a continuous Stone Age, spanning from the first tool to the first furnace, must now be challenged, replaced by a picture of fits and starts, localized breakthroughs, and technological relapses. We are forced to ask if other impossible discoveries lie buried beneath the sites we already think we understand, waiting for new dating techniques and sharper eyes to reveal the true depth of human ingenuity in the millennia following the last great ice age. The story of copper is, in essence, the story of human ambition, the desire to turn raw earth into something stronger, sharper, and more enduring than nature intended. The archaeological community today is locked in a fierce debate over the exact terminology and significance of these earliest dates. Is a single copper bead enough to declare a copper age? Does cold hammering constitute metallurgy in the same way as smelting? The consensus remains cautious, yet the raw data is undeniable. Humans were actively seeking, processing, and utilizing copper when they should have been focused exclusively on hunting and gathering. This knowledge reframes the entire Neolithic period, not as a simple transition from hunter to farmer, but as a complex stage of global experimentation, where metal, agriculture, and settlement all struggled for dominance. To stand at the edge of one of these ancient mining pits, dating back to a time before the pyramids, before Stonehenge, before the earliest written word, is to confront a ghost of technology. A powerful, almost forgotten skill that shaped the first attempts to control the material world. It is a humbling realization that our modern reliance on this metal, from power transmission to telecommunications, is a continuation of a thread pulled taut over 10,000 years, beginning with a few clever hands and a piece of malleable red rock found glistening on the ground.